It was supposed to be boring. I'd only been working nights at the hospital for a week. They'd assigned me to the East Wing. It wasn't a busy place. The East Wing was for long-term patients, people who were too weak to leave, most of them bedbound. No visitors at night, no emergencies, no chaos like the rest of the hospital. Just me, a few staff, the corridors, and the patients who never seemed to stir. The job was simple. Patrol the hallways, check the doors, keep watch on the cameras, nothing more. It should have been the easiest money I'd ever earned. The hospital changes after visiting hours. The chatter dies down. The fluorescent lights seem to buzz louder. And every footstep, every cough, echoes off the linoleum like a gunshot. In the East Wing, the silence is heavier. You really don't hear much except the low hum of the lights and the shallow breathing of patients. There's always that sharp, disinfectant sting in the air, mixed with something else, something faintly sour. That night, on my final pass through, it was the last ward. Something caught my attention. A nurse, white uniform, cap neatly in place, standing at the bedside of an old man. She leaned close, whispering something too soft for me to catch, smoothing the blanket with precise, careful hands. I nodded as I passed, and she didn't look up, didn't move, just kept smoothing the blanket like I wasn't there at all. I kept on my rounds, just the nurse doing her thing. But even then I remember thinking I hadn't seen her before. Later, I sat in the little office at the end of the wing, watching the monitors. The East Wing has its own set of feeds, old cameras, fuzzy black and white images that flicker when the air conditioning kicks in. The feed for the last ward, the one where I'd seen her, it crackled, the image wavered with static for a second. I leaned forward, expecting to see her. But there was just a patient in the bed, still and alone under the sheets. I rewound the tape, scrubbing back to where I'd passed, and there I was, walking down the corridor, the beds lined up, but no nurse. The chair creaked as I sat back and my palms were damp. I told myself I'd mixed up the rooms. They all looked the same in those long corridors. The same paint, the same curtains, the same hum of lights. Maybe I'd imagined her. It was easier to believe than the alternative. 2 nights later, on my third walkthrough of the night, I saw her again. Same uniform, different patient. Standing close, whispering in that low murmur. Her hand hovering just above the man's chest. Not pressing, not touching, just hovering. Like she was waiting for something. This time I slowed my steps, watching for longer than I should have. The air in the ward felt heavy, thick. I moved on eventually, but I couldn't shake the image of her. At the end of my shift, as the day staff came in, I overheard them talking. A patient had passed away in the night peacefully. They were talking quietly, but I heard it clear. My stomach dropped. Before leaving, I made myself go back to the ward. The bed I'd seen her by was empty, the sheets neatly stripped away. I forced myself to note the ward number, then walk back quickly to the office. I had to know. I pulled up the footage from the night. There I was, walking through. It was just after 2 a.m, but the bed, the patient, was alone. There was no nurse, No one by his side, just that faint flicker of static bleeding into the screen. My colleague noticed the look on my face, asked me what was wrong. I didn't answer. I just shut the monitor down and left as fast as I could. As weeks went by, the pattern became impossible to ignore. She was always there, always with different patients, and every one of them gone by sunrise. I started to dread the end of my rounds. My footsteps slowed in the corridors, my eyes fixed on the floor. I didn't want to see her. Some nights I even prayed I wouldn't. One night I caught a glimpse of her at the far end of the hall, just slipping past the doorway. Other times I'd find her already in a ward, standing perfectly still, just hovering next to a patient's bed. The way she moved, it wasn't like other nurses. It was too smooth, too steady, like she was gliding rather than walking. I never saw her face, not clearly. The lights always seemed to bend around her, shadows covering her features. All I ever caught was a pale blur where her eyes and mouth should have been. On what was my last night there, I'd been dragging my feet again as I did my rounds, dreading what I might see. And there she was, in the last ward again. The nurse in white, standing beside the bed of a woman whose chest rose and fell in shallow breaths. The nurse was leaned over her, one hand hovering just above her sternum, lips moving in a whisper I couldn't hear. But this time I didn't walk past. I don't know why. Maybe just the need to prove to myself she was real. My throat went dry, but I stepped closer. "Excuse me?" She stopped. Her hand lifted higher and she turned horribly slowly. For the first time her face tilted right toward me, and I understood why I'd never seen it before. The features were blurred, smudged, as if light refused to touch them. Where her eyes should have been, there was only emptiness. My knees locked. I wanted to run, but I was stuck. She didn't step closer. She didn't reach out. She just raised one pale finger and pressed it against her lips. Shh. The sound wasn't a whisper. It was inside my head, cold and final. As I blinked, she was gone. I stumbled back into the corridor, lungs heaving, hands shaking so badly I dropped my torch. I didn't look back. I just kept walking to the security office. I handed in my notice that morning. But sometimes when I drive past the hospital, I catch myself staring at the East Wing windows. Sometimes I swear I see her, just the white uniform leaning over a bed close to a window. And I wonder how many more she's visited since. How many have slipped away quietly, never knowing who or what was with them at the very end.